so restless when the track hits my soul. Restless to the point I lose control. I get so restless. Feel that body heat.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Johnny Miller here from SubBass in London, and today I'm going to look at the sampler device and use the sustain mode and the looping function of sampler to kind of recreate a style and a technique I used to put into my tunes many years ago, back in the 90s and the early part of the noughties, when I used to use the Akai S3000 sampler. One thing we used to do is we used to sample a little bit of a record, a jazz record or something, some keys from somewhere or other. And then we used to use the looping function inside the sampler to just sustain the end part of a note when we held a note down on the keyboard. And it gave you this nice kind of looping feel that when we played different keys of the keyboard, it would change the speed of the loop. It was really, really nice. If you listen to a lot of old drum and bass records, for instance, you'll hear this sound. It's used, a few producers use it. Not many people do this these days, though, which is one of the reasons why I think it's such a cool technique. You're going to get a slightly different sound to the kind of run-of-the-mill, normal MIDI-generated keys parts that you find in most tracks these days. Anyway, this sample here that I've had this in my library for years. It's just a little snippet from a live session with a keyboard player that I had years ago. Let's drop that into sampler. And just straight away, if I just play a few different keys, especially if I play low register, you just get this lovely effect. So sometimes when you've got samples like this in your collection, you might not necessarily know what to do with them, but pitching them down gives you like a melancholy. And further up register, we can get like a sweetness. So you can use the sample in a few different ways. At the moment in session view, I've just got a beat and bass part ready to go. And I love the deep house, the kind of Afro house sound at the moment, so it's got an organic kind of wooden feel to it. And just if I play the sample just with the beat, especially if I add just a tiny bit of delay. Straight away I can make a little melody from that. But again, I'm going to use the looping function to create this kind of weird cycling sound. And to start with, I'm going to look at the sample start and maybe just move the start point of the sample in. And one thing I love about working with sampler is that it just feels like you're inside an audio clip almost. When we get onto using the sustain mode of the looping function, it just feels like we're moving a loop brace around inside an audio clip. But to start with, I'm just going to find a little sweet spot. Let's turn that delay off for a second actually, so we can hear what we're doing. There we go. So I've just moved the sample start point just in a little bit away from the first note, and sometimes you get a nicer sound, sometimes there might be a bit of dead air or a little bit of a gap or something at the beginning of the sample. So look at that start point. I'm going to keep it fairly close to the beginning though, that's fine. The other thing I'm going to do here is just nip over quickly to the global section and just put a tiny bit of attack on the volume envelope. And I find that just softens the impact of the note. That's nice. Okay, let's go to sustain mode now. And at the moment it's just set to play stop. So the sample will just play to the end and then stop. Let's go to play reverse. And this is unique to sampler. We don't have this function inside Simpler, the Simpler device. Now I'm just going to use the loop start and loop end to set a region which is going to cycle round. So let's bring the loop end value right down. And once we get to about here, and this is what I quite like to do, instead of using the loop start and loop end values, I like to pick up the region with the mouse. And again, this is just, to me, this just feels like working inside an audio clip with the looping brace. And we get this nice kind of sustained play reverse feel, especially if I bring the region right in. Now you can hear there's some little clicks and pops there. That's just literally the sample just looping round. We're always going to get some little noises and pops and clicks. So we can soften them with the crossfade. And the nice thing about the crossfade is that it gives us almost like a modulation effect. So the level's kind of moving up and down the volume. As it's cycling, it almost feels like the loop is moving away from us and then towards us, this classic modulation effect. And I just love that sound. Let's bring the delay back in. And of course, when I play higher register notes, the loop feels like it's working faster than if I play a lower register note where the loop feels like it's slower. And that's the whole point here. We don't necessarily want the looping effect to stay in time with our beats. And you might need to fine-tune the length of the loop, the region, the crossfade settings until it sounds kind of right and sits in right with what you've got. But just the fact that it's not looping in time gives it that sense of freedom within your tune. Also, another thing to try this particular technique with is vocals. It sounds very, very cool, and you can get some really, really interesting effects on a vocal that you could use as a lead sound in your tune. So experiment with it and have fun. And I'll be back again soon with some more tips in Ableton Live 9 for SubBass in London. Peace.
I get so restless when the track hits my soul. Restless to the point I lose control. I get so restless. Feel that body heat.